Welcome to Fearless and Unfiltered. Real talk, real challenges, and real wisdom from two badass BFFs that aren't afraid to say it like it is.
We're here to share stories that inspire, lessons that empower, and a whole lot of laughs along the way.
Get ready to get fearless.
Get unfiltered.
And get real with Carrie and Vicki.
What is up, beautiful people? Welcome to the Fearless and Unfiltered podcast with Carrie and Vicki. In this raw and real kickoff episode, we dive into the painful trap of unmet expectations, especially in relationships, and the emotional toll it can take on your life. From toxic cycles and victim mentality to boundary setting and spiritual release, we explore the truth behind trying to change someone else. Spoiler alert. It's not your job.
Whether you're stuck in that toxic relationship or actually struggling to let go of the what could have been, this episode will actually help you reclaim your power, shift your perspective, and actually find peace in letting it go. Your fearless journey starts here.
What is up, Vicki? How you doing today?
Wonderful. I hope you're doing well, and I'm ready to get into some fun stuff for these. Give them some little life nuggets.
Let's go. You guys are going to get so much information. We are going to tell our real, raw, personal stories, and hope that you can come away with a lot of information. So I got to tell you, my BFF, my best friend Vicki, who's sitting right here, she shared the most powerful piece of advice I've ever received in my life. And I want to share that with you today.
Okay.
So,
one of the nuggets.
What's the advice you gave me, Vicki?
The best advice I think that you can always have is an elephant is never going to be a mouse because it can't transfer into it. So an elephant will never be able to turn into a mouse. It's always an elephant.
An elephant cannot become a mouse.
No.
If it's always going to be an elephant.
Correct.
Now, I can tell you that was like a mic drop, bomb drop for me because I have struggled pretty much my whole life with a personal relationship between me and my mother. And I'm sure that some of you can relate to this as well, whether it's a parent, whether it's a sibling, or it's a friend. We have certain expectations of other people. And sometimes those people do not fit into the expectation. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'll tell you my personal story. When about 10 years ago, my mom and I and my son moved here from Pennsylvania.
Right.
So I got my company to relocate me, brought my mom along with me. She ended up living with me because I did a lot of traveling for work. And so
it worked out.
She helped take care of my son. And I'm super grateful for that. But there were some things that she would do, some behaviors that I didn't agree with. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I met Vicki. She was my first friend when I moved here. Yep. I knew no one. Okay. So we met at the bar. She was bartending. I put an offer on a house and ended up getting an offer on my house in Pennsylvania. So I'm signing 2 contracts that evening. It was like the stars were aligned. Here I am. But I made a lot of friends the first year, mm-hmm. and my mother wanted to hang out with me and my friends. And it's
because she was kind of learning the area too, and probably didn't have that support system or those friends as well.
Exactly. So, she wanted to tag along, and that got kind of annoying. I don't want to hang out with my mom when I have my new friend group, and she would get mad at me and, sometimes act a little pissy and different things. Yep. And so this behavior repeated year after year after year. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm so sick of this frustration of having the tag along. Like, I don't want you to hang out with me. Listen, I love my mother. I have no ill feelings towards her, but it was just when Vicki told me you're never going to turn an elephant into a mouse, I was like, OMG. I'm expecting a different behavior. I'm expecting her to be the parent that I want or yearned for. And I realized that she's just not going to be that. And it's okay. Mm-hmm. So that kind of freed me.
Right. Well, I think the other thing on that is that even though you may have said, hey, Mom, I'd really like to just hang out with these people by myself and I don't want you to come along. Instead of her understanding that or even, hey, Carrie, well, why are you saying that? I really want to meet your friends too. It's like she didn't accept that boundary in a sense. And the sad thing is that when that repeated behavior goes again and again, your frustration level goes again and again. And I think sometimes we're even afraid when we're that intimate with somebody like our parents, you know, love thy father and mother, you know, you don't want to say something that will hurt their feelings, but you're not saying it to hurt their feelings. You're just actually saying it to have a healthier relationship. But sometimes people do not have the capacity to understand that. And it's not your job to either A, help them understand it, or explain it to them. I mean, either they're going to get it or they're not. And that's the sometimes that you have to walk away, or you have to say something or place that boundary so that your life is healthy and happy. And you can stand on that wall because it's a real thing that you said, hey, I need my space too. Why don't you go meet some you new friends? You know, so I think it's a give take. It's not like I'm going to tell you I'm due and then you don't do it. But when you do it over and over and over again, that is the pattern. You need to see it that you had an expectation, you know, but this is what it has to be because I am an adult and I want to live a happy life too.
Right. I'm an adult and my mother wants to hang out with me and my friends. It's
because
like,
you're cool.
I am cool. Well, we're cool together. So like Vicki would come over and then my mom would come out on the front porch to like hang out with us. And it's like, no, she's coming to see me, not you. Like, come on.
Like a competition thing. But at the same time, I think you gave her the opportunity by placing that boundary to empower her to actually go out and meet new people. And like, look at her now, 5 years down the road. She has a great core group of people here in the Carolinas. And I think it's helped her grow. So she may still be an elephant.
Well, I think that was the key for me, is that I was expecting different behavior. And there's more to the story. This is just a little chunk of it. And I'm sure you guys can relate, whether it's a husband or your wife that just, you know, you're expecting them to be different. They're not going to change, you know? It's like the definition of insanity. If you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, you're expecting different results.
Yep.
That's insane. So if I'm expecting my mother to behave in a certain way or act in a certain way, it's just not in her capacity. So then I can finally have solace in that and understand it's not going to change. So stop wasting my time and energy trying to make somebody understand why this isn't working for me. Where, you know, it was like, I would feel bad. I'd feel bad if I didn't include her. I'd feel bad about all these things. And a therapist once told me that no one can make you feel anything. You see, because we are actually in control of our feelings.
Absolutely.
And when you realize that, that you cannot make me feel guilty, no matter how hard you try.
Right.
I still, but here's the twist, is like, I would still feel guilty. I would feel bad. And I'd always like go back and, you know, try to rectify the relationship or say, you know, I'm sorry that I made you feel bad, when it's this dynamic cycle.
It
and
is.
So I think as a listener, if you can relate to this, there's a couple key lessons that we want you to take away from this. And I think number one is awareness. Awareness that you're expecting someone else to behave in a different way.
Right.
And it's not happening.
And what happens if that person doesn't know what your expectation is? Because, you know, in your mom and daughter relationship, you've had that for 30 plus years at that stage of the game. And I think you guys, you know, you grew leaps and bounds. And so then, you know, your mom was just expecting you to invite her. Your mom was just expecting you to not get mad when she did, to come out with you, and expecting you to come back and say, well, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. Are you okay with this? And in a sense, that's not your job. It isn't. You know, you go back to awareness and where this little nugget of life came from. The elephant is never going to be a mouse because it's always an elephant, is an ex-husband relationship. So, you know, he traveled, Carrie, 47 out of 52 weeks. So he was gone on Sunday night and back on Friday night. So I literally only had to get along with him for 48 hours. Okay. And I'm sitting here struggling because, you know, why could we not get along when, you know, that's such a short period of time in this internal relationship, basically. And I'm trying my hardest. I'm still the same genuine person that I was before and still am, and growing like you're supposed to in relationships. But in the end of it, you know, one little thing was, you know, setting him off, you know, and I'm like, well, why, you know? And so then once you're aware of, like I said, I knew that I only had to get along with him for 48 hours. So
But
I was
pause. So why is this a thing that you have to get along with your husband for 48 hours? Shouldn't you guys get along all the time and have that
100%.
relationship?
But see, we didn't have, because he traveled, so we didn't have that time during the week like most couples do.
Right.
But at the same time, you would think that that would be of value than there is all kinds of other things going on in the background that's causing this. But the point being is that I was still being me, just like I would be on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, but why wasn't good enough on Saturday and Sunday? And so then I just became very aware of what I was saying and how I was being treated back, or what the reaction was whenever I tried to make a comment or set a boundary. And like I said, you can set that boundary. It's your perspective, and now you put the line down, and either that person or any individual that is in a relationship with you is going to say, okay, I respect that, and now I understand. So you're not going to be pushing that boundary just to specifically irritate somebody. And if that person is, maybe you need to reevaluate that entire relationship.
So it sounds like you changed your behavior based upon his reactions. And so did you find yourself walking around on eggshells all the time?
100%.
And dimming your light and not being yourself?
Well, I think that's what it is when you can't be your genuine, authentic self, it really kind of, kills your heart, kills your spirit. You lose your joy. And no offense, but your job is your joy. You get this one life to live, and it's yours. So you have to take the actions to make that a better life. And personally, one of my goals was to be happier. And so at this point in time, it took a while, but you do have to, you said awareness, and awareness is actually the first thing for you to start noticing, so that then you understand what boundary that you need to place or put down and conversation to have, right?
Yeah. So listeners, okay, maybe you have a spouse that is dimming your light. You want to shine. Listen, like Vicki said, our souls are here to sing. We want to feel expansive. We want to feel happy. We want to feel joy. That is why we're here. Nobody wants to feel dense and low vibration, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And so maybe you like to go out and do things. Maybe you're an extrovert. You like to hang out with people, but your husband doesn't. And you find yourself modifying your own behavior because of someone else, which is taking away your light, dimming your light and your joy.
Yes.
So the reason why we're sharing our intimate stories, our personal stories, is because we want you to know that you're not alone. And we want to be unfiltered and fearless to have these conversations, so that, you can notice particular behavior patterns of someone else that you don't agree with, that they might be affecting you in a negative way.
Or when your awareness is seeing that you are changing your behaviors to adapt to that individual. That's another awareness. And it's kind of a step-by-step thing. And we're not saying, get rid of the relationship completely, but it's a healthy boundary. So like, you still have a relationship with your mom. I still have a relationship with my ex, and it's fine. Things will move forward and it will move on. But it is a choice that you get to make. You get to say, this just isn't right for me, and I really just need to place a boundary. And that boundary is, I need about 2 days, or I need 4 hours with my friends, because I need that that time to myself. Or hey, I just really want to get along with you on the weekends, so I don't want to stress it out. So can you stop maybe asking me to do this or this and this that's wrong, or stop I guess criticizing me. You're not here on a full-time basis, so I guess you don't see what I do all the time, but maybe we can try to work on the weekend time and try to make that most enjoyable for both of us. And so I think it opens a conversation door.
And sometimes, maybe you need to be done trying. When you're trying to accommodate someone else's feelings and expectations, but they're not trying to accommodate yours.
It takes two.
You notice that, right?
Absolutely.
And what's, the most difficult part of any relationship is communication, and sharing those expectations of, this behavior makes me feel XYZ.
I completely get that, because even let's say you, like you were saying with your mom, you would say, hey, I want to hang out with my friends. Can you just not come over so I can hang out?
But then she would get
Get
all
mad.
pissy and mad and
Yeah.
roll her eyes and wouldn't talk to
Yeah.
me for a couple days.
Exactly.
Now listen, at this point in time, I'm a 35-year-old woman and stuff. Like I don't, and that would just set me off.
Right.
It would make me mad. And it wasn't just that behavior towards me. It was towards, my sister and these patterns of behavior. And it's like, you're not noticing, like self-reflecting that this is not acceptable.
And some people do not have the capacity to understand that, or they aren't willing to be aware of it as well.
So when Vicki told me that, I was like, OMG.
I gotta show you this.
It all makes sense now.
Can I put this up? See the elephant?
You cannot turn an elephant into a mouse because they're always going to be an elephant. Okay? And so I think lesson number 2 is not only are boundaries healthy,
Right.
but they are necessary for your own mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're expecting someone else to do something different and they're not doing it, number 1, awareness. Okay, I'm insane. Let's pause this. Number 2 is, let's establish a healthy boundary.
Yep.
So that me and this person can have a relationship without having all the conflict and having all of the fighting or the arguments, exhaustingness.
Yep, I would agree. The next one I think is when you talked about, spoiler alert, it's not your job, people. We can't change people, even though you want to. You want them to be a better person. Oh, that's fine. That's a negative thing in our relationship, but I'm sure I can change his perspective. No, you can't, because in reality, only you can change yourself, or only you can make the changes that you see fit. And so quit beating your head up against the wall, because it isn't your job. And if you are in a healthy relationship, you both are going to work together to understand what can you change to help make it a better one. And that, like I said, the boundary actually establishes a really healthy conversation. And then if that conversation doesn't go the direction it needs to, then there comes another decision that you have to make.
Right.
So
100%. You can't change someone else. But when you change your perspective,
Yep.
you actually change your reality. And so for me, understanding that I can't turn an elephant into a mouse was like, oh, wow, okay, now I can approach this differently. I can show up differently. And in every present moment, I have the power to shift the way that a conversation or an interaction might go between us. And so that's what I would start to do, is show up in that way of, listen, I've set this expectation, and when you cross the boundary, then there has to be something.
Right.
Like, what is going to happen when you cross this boundary? Because it's not acceptable for me anymore.
And then you get to make the choice of what you're going to do with it. So whether that's turning around and walking away, whether it's having another discussion with them, if that's what you feel that you need to do, or it's just like, maybe the next time I'll meet my friends away from the home, And so those are your choices, but once again, it comes back to you. So it's all about your perspective and how you show up. Mm-hmm. So instead of beating yourself against the wall, so they just don't have the capacity. So like elephants do not have the capacity of a mouse. A mouse doesn't have the capacity of an elephant. So.
And I think the final lesson here is forgiveness.
Amen to that one.
Because, A Course in Miracles says forgiveness removes a block in me to my awareness of love's presence. So if you're walking around resentful because someone else acts a certain way or treats you a certain way, or you're angry, or you're hurt, or you're just exhausted from expecting something different, when you realize the elephant and the mouse thing, it's like, okay, well, I have the choice. Mm-hmm. I can either continue to put up with this behavior, or I can set the boundary. And if they cross the boundary, then maybe we need to extinguish the relationship. I mean, I will tell you guys, I met Vicki when she was at the end of this marriage, and she didn't have any light. Like her light was so dimmed.
It was, because when you're in that kind of relationship and you were choosing to be there. And whether it was because you didn't think that you had the knowledge, or whether you didn't think you had the resources, when your light is that dim, it's really hard for you to see it.
Yeah.
You know? And so sometimes that's when you get good friends into your life, to kind of help bring it back out. And again, that's a awareness thing of, you know, are you in a relationship and that person is supporting you? Are they lifting you up? Are they encouraging you, or are they smushing you down?
Can I share the story
About the mailbox?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So when me and Vicki first became friends, she was married and her husband came to pick her up one day from my house, and I said, "Oh my gosh, guess what?" It's the first time I met him. I said, "Guess what? I'm taking Vicki to a Luke Bryan concert." Yep. And he looked at me and he was like,
"We'll see.
We'll see about that." And I was like, "What?" Like,
No.
what is wrong with you?
We've already bought the ticket, so
yeah,
she's
like,
going.
She's going. Okay, so then
later on that night, so I'm excited because I met a new friend, and I'm like, "Oh my God, you know, what'd you think of Carrie? Isn't she great? Her son's great, you know, great. Her and him and Reese got along great." And it was funny because he goes, was it aggressive? Abrasive. She's abrasive. We'll see.
Because I said I was taking her to a Luke Bryan concert.
My friend Carrie is abrasive. Not at all, to be honest with you. But, you know, back to the forgiveness thing, Carrie, forgiveness is not about them. It's not about forgiving them or the act or whatever. It literally is for you. So forgiveness is for you to, like, whew, I think your trick is like wipe it off. And to be honest with you, I used to blow. So any time that it was my ability to kind of like trick my brain into going back to what I wanted and the boundary. And, you know, if something was coming at me, I would just blow it away. And sometimes you may need that physical trick to kind of kick you back into it. But remember, forgiveness is giving it to God, let it go. You don't have to worry about it anymore.
Let go and let God. And just know that, you know, as long as you have good intentions, good in your heart, you know, I forgive my mother, okay? I have love for her. I forgive her, and I wish her the best. I wish her well. I wish her happiness. I wish her peace. You know, unfortunately, we haven't had the best relationship throughout life. And unfortunately, you know, right now we don't have a relationship at all.
And I think, though, that comes from your growing and her growing. And you both have came to the conclusion that maybe it is better off to keep the boundary the where it is. You know, boundaries can move. They don't have to be there forever. Or maybe it shifts to one side to the other. So I think that's part of it, though, which is the forgiveness. You know what I'm saying? Because you are coming from a good place. You are wishing her well. But at the same time, because you placed that boundary, you know where it needs to stay in order to keep your happiness and joy.
Right. And I could hold on to feelings of resentment and continue to replay stories. And this is what I notice, right? A lot of people do. And I've done a lot of inner work to get past this. But noticing when you're holding on to feelings of resentment. Notice when you're replaying the same old story in your mind and it's making you feel anxious or angry. We have the power in every present moment to realize that I'm thinking these thoughts and I don't have to. So let's stop. Let's stop the saga of these stories, and let's start by offering that forgiveness and saying, you know what, I'm just going to let go of this, and I'm going to let God, and I'm just going to wish you the best, and I'm going to focus on something different.
Yep. And it's done wonders for you, I think, in that time frame, just being your friend and kind of overseeing it all.
Well, thank you.
You know, so when we kind of started this, how are we going to deliver these kind of fun things to you? Obviously fearless, because it is scary sometimes to tell your own personal stories. But we want to give you guys some gold nuggets, little golden nuggets of life. So to kind of wrap up what we talked about today, the elephant and the mouse, you can't change somebody else. You got to change your perspective, and that in turn will change your reality. Mm-hmm. And then boundaries are okay. They're not only okay, they're actually necessary.
So let's talk about a boundary, Vicki. Like, how can someone set a healthy boundary?
I think you have to be able to know what the boundary is and what the goal is for setting it. Does it make sense? Because then you'll have a more conviction as to that. Then you have to have the healthy conversation with the person you're setting that boundary with. Because if they don't know, then it's the part of the equation. Communication is a two-way street.
And a lot of times, in relationships, just even son, mother, daughter, whatever, it's like this unspoken, like the silent treatment.
Oh, yeah.
Giving somebody the silent treatment.
Or rolling your eyes.
Right. But not explaining why you're upset and not explaining why you're not talking to them. I think that's also very important because it's just keeping that conflict going and there's no resolution.
Correct.
So I think the key really is that open and honest communication of this is how this behavior makes me feel.
Yes.
Okay, so when you talk about how it makes you feel, they can't challenge your feelings. They don't know how you feel. But you can openly say, this makes me feel this way. It makes me feel small. It makes me feel not appreciative or not loved, or it makes me feel whatever. So explaining how it makes you feel, and hopefully that person can have some type of empathy for you, and they can have some type of understanding. But if they don't, this is the elephant, okay? Because I have tried and tried.
Right.
And, I'll give another example. When I was younger, I was in a very long-term relationship with a man, and he cheated on me a lot of times. And I would take him back,
right,
expecting something different. That's a definition of insanity, right?
Right.
So if you have a partner who, is not honest with you and does those types of things, sometimes if it continues, you have to realize you're not going to change that person. Stop wasting your time.
And is it God or universe or whoever it is telling you, hey, maybe you haven't learned that lesson yet. That's why you keep going through these patterns. And so it goes back to the whole thing of being aware, and then setting healthy boundaries, and then having the communication about that. And then if they're not hearing you or they're not respecting that boundary, then that's something also you have to be aware of and be ready to let it go or walk away or figure out what's next.
And I will say, I know that letting go and walking away is hard. For me, it was hard in a lot of relationships in my life. And I know, I have clients who struggle with some things and they would love to walk away, but it's scary, right? What if you've been married for 20 some years and it's like, I got to start over now? Even though you're not happy, your soul is not singing every single day.
Right. But if you're an elephant and your husband's a mouse, and let's say you guys try to go get therapy, okay, you're trying to save this, and they're just not getting it.
Right.
Then it is your choice again. Do I stick with it and just let this ride and live with it? Or do I actually look into what maybe would be a better option for me?
Right.
And that's your choice.
And I wish that when I was younger, I would have left that terrible relationship many, many years before. I'm sure, we can all wish, right? And this is another key.
Right.
I wish it would be different. I wish I would have left earlier. I wish I would have had somebody to talk to me about this when I was a teenager or in my 20s and share these wisdom drops with me. But I think that we go through things for a reason.
Yep.
There's a season for a reason. We might not ever understand why.
Right.
But I think that God or universe is trying to show you the way. And it is your willingness to listen, or it's your willingness to take that path, even when the path might be scary. Okay? And I will say, if you're in a relationship where it's time to end it and move on, reach out for help. You don't have to do it alone. She has been...
You would be surprised how many people that actually probably have been in the same situation you're in, or a very similar one. And until you ask for it or, talk about it, you're never going to know that. And when you are in those kind of relationships, it takes a minute to find that light again. But if you look and you're aware, you're going to see that light coming at you.
But don't do it alone. See, I think that's the key, is you don't have to do it alone. There are people out there. There's support systems.
Yep.
You know, if you're struggling.
Well, crap, the internet, man, you can Google search that stuff immediately, you know, and it gives you some good points to do if you're an introvert and you don't want to deal with somebody else. Or you're scared to share that story with somebody else.
Right. And let us know in the comments. Let us know, you guys, if this resonates with you, if you're struggling, or give us some examples, because really we want to use this platform to reach, teach, and transform lives, to help other people know that you're not alone. Listen, we all struggle with this shit. I mean, we are human beings and we struggle. You know, there are people that live in the victim mentality. There are people that struggle with expectations of others, and those expectations are not being met. There are people who are suffering in toxic relationships.
Right.
And, you know, you're dimming your light for someone else. That is not how life should be spent. That is not what we're here.
No, and again, I'm going to go back to, you get this one life to live. That's all you get. That's all you get. And so you have to live the most for it. So, I hope you guys found some treasures in some of our stories here, and know that there was a lot of probably pain and tears and frustration along the way as we walked through and learned these nuggets of life and found each other to kind of be able to give this wisdom back and forth. And now we want to share that with you guys. So Fearless and Unfiltered, stay tuned for more. It's going to be exciting and more topics to chew over.
Woohoo! All right. Well, you guys make sure you tune in for the next episode. We have a really great one for you, and we'll see you. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for hanging out with us on Fearless and Unfiltered. If you laughed, learned, or loved it, smash that subscribe button. Share this episode with a friend, and be sure to join us for the next real, raw, and fearless conversation.
Remember, life's too short to play small, so stay fearless, stay unfiltered, and keep showing up with your badass self.